What's good, Commanders fans, and happy Saturday. I'm finally getting into the coaching candidate talk. This one is specifically just on the report from the Washington Post and Nicki Jhabvala. I think a lot of you guys have seen this already within the past 24 hours. The article or the post says the Commanders are expected to be targeting Ravens head of scouting Joe Horitz and defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald to be their next GM and head coach, per the Washington Post, via general managers. The quote says it's not going to be a retread, according to longtime league executives. So I'm happy to hear that. I don't want it to be a retread. If my voice sounds weird, like I said in my last video, I am recovering from being under the weather. But yeah, I don't want it to be a retread. You know, Bill Belichick is a name that's thrown out there. I don't want to retread. We went down the retread route with Ron Rivera. No disrespect to Mike Tomlin. I like him a lot. But I just want a young guy in there. I want a young guy who's like in their 30s, energetic, Mike McDaniel type of guy, Sean McVay kind of guy. Mike McDaniel, I already said Mike McDaniel. I can't stand Nick Sirianni, but they've had success under Nick Sirianni. So you get my point with the energy. Even the Jets coach, Robert Saleh, they're not winning games because of the quarterback situation. But when last year they looked promising under him, you know. So that's just kind of the energy that we need. We need a young, innovative mind. The game has clearly changed since Ron was good with Cam Newton. Things have just changed. Defenses have changed. Schemes have changed. Ron Rivera not even believing in the linebacker position really. And then look at Mike McDonald with Patrick Queen and Patrick Queen. What's the other guy? Roquan Smith. I mean, those guys are out there playing their butts off. They're playing with their hairs on fire, forcing turnovers, getting interceptions, making plays. Look at Kyle Hamilton playing safety. Like, these guys are forcing turnovers, and they definitely are opportunistic defense under Mike Macdonald. So I think he would be a good head coaching candidate. And we know that Josh Harris said that he wants to basically resemble what the Ravens did. We know the connection with Eugene Shen. They're very good friends. Eugene Shen is now part of the front office now. So there's just a lot of connections with the Baltimore Ravens that I feel like are going to happen over the next couple of weeks with hiring. So, and we could hire somebody else. It could be an offense coordinator. I'm an offensive state of mind. Personally, I would go with an offensive coordinator, but you've seen defensive coordinators have success now. DeMeco Ryans had a good offensive coordinator with Bobby Slowick. If you do get a defensive-minded head coach or a head coach who was a defensive coordinator, you have to hit a home run on the offensive coordinator. You cannot play around and just bring in your best friend's son, like a Scott Turner or something like that. You can't play around with who you're going to hire the offensive coordinator spot. So that's going to be huge. But looking at Mike Macdonald's resume here, I mean, they've had some really good games. Of course, Brock Purdy, 5 and 4 interceptions in that game against Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, so much talent, Trent Williams. And they basically they blew that team out, 33-19, dominated, and just took advantage of the turnovers that they forced. Kyle Hamilton got a pick. Marlon Humphrey got a pick. They forced turnovers. That's something that we don't do. This defense here, under Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, they did not force turnovers. They just didn't. They were allergic to forced turnovers. That's what Mike Macdonald is good at doing. Same thing with Tua. They forced turnovers. They beat them 56-19. They beat the Niners 33-19. They beat the Lions 38-6. They turned the ball over and they force pressure, man. That's what they do under Mike McDaniel. They play fast. You know, Jadeveon Clowney. They find guys. You know, they find guys and make them play to the best of their potential. So, just looking at some of their numbers, pure PFF. The Baltimore Ravens defense has generated 385 quarterback pressures this season. First in the NFL, the league average is 299. So yeah, they're first in generated quarterback pressures, 385 this season. I mean, they've been getting to the quarterback. They forced 10 turnovers in their last 3 games, which is first in the NFL over that period. They're first in sacks, third in interceptions, first in passing touchdowns allowed, first in rushing touchdowns allowed, third in completion percentage, first in passing yards per attempt allowed. So there's just so many things. Number 3 in red zone defense. Number 1 in sacks. I already talked about that. So just all the numbers right there. The third best DVOA team in NFL history for defense right now through 16 games. First in sacks, first in takeaways, first in scoring. So, I mean, so many good things that their defense is doing right now. And, you know, he left and came back. Like, he was with Michigan for a little bit, came back, coached Aiden Hutchinson, who's a perennial Pro Bowler, not perennial Pro Bowler, but just a dominant player at times for the Lions. So, I mean, his 2021, his lone season coordinator of Michigan's defense, he helped guide the Wolverines to their first Big Ten title since 2004 and appearance in the college football playoff semifinals as well. So, Yeah, defense coordinator in 2022 after spending 2021 season as Michigan's defensive coordinator. Prior to his time with the Wolverines, McDonald spent 7 seasons, 2014 to 2020 in Baltimore, serving as linebackers coach. So he's a guy that can get the best out of the linebackers. If he comes here, maybe Jamin Davis may have a career resurgence. Jabril Cox, you might get the best out of him. And he's definitely going to attack that in the draft, I feel like, with the GM Joe Horitz and bringing in some guys. Defensive backs coach 2017. Defensive assistant 2015-16, and defensive coaching intern 2014. So he's got it through the mud. He's worked his way up. The defense also allowed the second fewest total touchdowns. To talk about that, cornerback Marlon Humphrey and inside linebacker Roquan Smith were each named to the Pro Bowl. So he's got these guys playing hard. And then when he was with the Ravens before, C.J. Mosley was a stud. So he's a guy that you can get the best out of the linebacker position, which we just have not been able to really get the best out of linebacker position. Or Ron, they just didn't believe it. The Buffalo nickel. That's what they really believed in. Matthew Judon, even though, he played defensive and linebacker. He made a Pro Bowl in 2019 and 2020 as well. So Mike McDonald, I mean, he has a great resume. He really does. He has a great resume. So I would be intrigued to see if we could get him. And just some other little tidbits here, just historically with Mike McDonald too. McDonald, the article also says, the write-up for him on the Ravens website says, Mike McDonald was in a cramped office share with 2 other coaching interns. Chris Horton, who played for the Commanders, if I'm not mistaken, or the Skins at the time, who got the 2 interceptions in that one game. He had locks. I remember that. And Eugene Shin. Horton was a former NFL safety who played several years in the league. Shin was a finance brainiac from Alliance Bernstein, who was a Ravens' first foray into coaching analytics. So that's the tie. That's the connection you got. So we could be, I'm not going to say the Washington Ravens because I remember the Washington Commanders. So the Washington Panthers. So I don't want to start that up again. But at least we know we're getting guys from a winning organization. The Panthers, they were a winning organization at the time with Cam Newton, but this one feels different. You just have a lot of young, innovative minds coming over. If this is the direction that Josh Harris ends up going, for sure. So I love the aggressive play style by Mike McDonald. He brings the heat against Jared Goff and their offense. They're about to have 2 1,000-yard rushers, and he did a good job shutting those guys down. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Armon Ross St. Brown. So he's played some really, really good defenses and has done a really, really good job against them. C.J. Stroud held them to 9 points. The Texans. Who else? Looking at the Browns, they beat the Browns 28-3. Beat the Titans 24-16. So Seahawks 37-3. I mean, they had a couple of dominant wins. The Chargers, they were able to force turnovers in that game too. Now having Lamar Jackson, of course, that does help you. It helps you out a lot because when you're playing up with Lamar, he's a quarterback where you got the lead, he can really take over and just dominate with running the football, him using his legs, and it's kind of like an avalanche. It's kind of like a just sequence of events that can turn bad. When you get a turnover, like Lamar's not fooling around with that. He ran for one against the Niners, threw one against Zay Flowers, threw one to Nelson Aguilar. So Lamar is really, really good when he's playing up from behind. Is some of the question marks with Lamar, but when he has a lead, they can just pile on and pile on and pile on. It can get ugly, and the defense can just pin their ears back and force turnovers over and over again. It's just so funny. We're trying to model our team over the Ravens, and I think about that Super Bowl preseason win that we had over the Ravens a couple of back in September when we beat them. We broke their streak, so it doesn't really matter, but it's just funny thinking about that at that time. So all right, let's look at Joe Horitz real quick. Joe Horitz, he was interviewed for a couple of GM jobs. He was interviewed by the Cardinals. He was interviewed by the Giants. A couple of teams interviewed Joe Horitz, and you just look at the draft picks that the Ravens have had over the last couple of years, man. They've done a really good job drafting. Obviously drafting Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Orlando Brown Jr., who's gone now. Zay Flowers is a hit, clearly. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, that was a hit in the 4th round. He's playing really good ball right now. Rashad Bateman, I like him a lot. They've had some misses for sure, but more than J.K. Dobbins, he's injured, but I like him too. And they've really built a good wide receiver core around Lamar Jackson. Bringing in Roquan Smith. They made some really big plays. Even signing Morgan Moses, that's been a good pickup for them too. So a lot of their personnel moves. Gus Edwards is a good running back for them too. So a lot of their drafting Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Lindenbaum, they just they really don't think too much in the draft. They just get the best player available. That's kind of what happens with them. That's what happened with Lamar Jackson. He fell to 18. They were like, hey, we're just going to get him. Or what pick was he? He was, because he was in a pick with, Orlando Brown, Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst. That was a darn good draft for the Ravens. That's a legendary draft right there. Lamar fell to pick 32 at the time. Hayden Hurst was 25. So Lamar fell all the way down to 32. And they're like, they don't think too much. They're just like, we're going to get the best player available. And that's what they do. Same thing with Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton fell down to them, and they were like, hey, we're just going to get the best player available. He fell to pick 14. A lot of draft scouts at the time, before that, they were like, oh, he might be a top 10 pick. But some things came up with the combine and like, oh, he might be too slow and stuff like that. And they just took advantage and took him. So Joe Horitz has been in the league for a long time. He's been with the Ravens for a long time as well. He had 24th season with the Ravens was last year, and third as director of player personnel. Spent 10 seasons as the Ravens director of college scouting. And has 2 Super Bowl rings as well. Was there with Brian Billick at the time, and then now John Harbaugh. So he's been there. He's paid his dues. Got it through the mud. Got out of the mud. Hard work too. Worked his way up as well. So a director of college scouting. So Joe Horitz, man, you look at the draft picks. Yes, they do have some misses. Devin Duvernay, he's not terrible, but he didn't really pan out. Hollywood Brown's been good, but they ended up trading him. It did take them some time to hit on a wide receiver because they just didn't have a lot of wide receiver talent around Lamar like that, or they just couldn't get the best out of the wide receivers. That's one con I look at a little bit. But other than that, they've been able to make some big moves and definitely improve their team for sure. So I think Joe Horitz has a really good resume. So that's a guy that you definitely want to take a look at for sure. Especially with Zay Flowers, man, he's been a hit for them. He really has. He's been a big hit for them. 77 catches this year, 858 yards, and 5 touchdowns for sure. Tyler Linderbaum, you look at him, and Kyle Hamilton with 4 interceptions this year and 5 sacks. So he's had a heck of a season so far for sure. And then Isaiah Likely, 64 catches for 753 yards. Being your backup tight end, coming in from Mark Andrews. They just have a lot of depth on that roster as well. Like I said, I don't want to toot Baltimore's horn because there's so many Commanders fans that jump ship and go to the Ravens and stuff like that, battle the Beltway. But I have no ill will against the Ravens. Like I said, I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. And the way they do business is good too. Odafe Owe has 13 sacks this season, so he's had a heck of a season too. So just looking at some of the numbers from the guys that they've drafted, he was a first-round pick, 31st pick of the draft. Bateman has 4 touchdowns. They bought him Odell Beckham Jr. as well. So, I mean, they done some really good things over the years, obviously, here. Nothing new for sure. So, I mean, these are the career stats for some of these guys. Isaiah Likely, 7 touchdowns in his career. But Zay Flowers, 77 catches for 858 yards and 5 touchdowns. That is his rookie season right now. So, they've definitely made some good plays for sure. Yeah, Odafe Owe has 5 sacks this season. So, that's not terrible. It's just not bad at all. So, yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at those guys. We'll see what happens. Black Monday is coming up, guys, very quickly. I can't wait. It's going to be a holiday. January 8th. It's going to be a holiday. I'm going to try my best to go live. I'm going to be super, super excited when Ron gets fired, man. We won't have to worry about him drafting and trading up for a long snap or any of that stuff like that with the new GM that comes in. So I can't wait, guys. It's the dawn of a new day, new energy, new vibes. You guys let me know what you guys think. Hello, Commanders. Peace.